This week on the Retirement Quick Tips podcast, I'm talking about America's $30 trillion tab on the national debt and what that means for you. A very smart investor, professional investor, she's like the chief market strategist for a very large financial company. I recently heard her say, this is maybe in the last couple of years, someone posed a question to her about the national debt. This is Liz Ann Saunders, by the way. I'm going to get her title wrong probably, but I believe she's the chief market strategist at Charles Schwab. So huge financial institution. So she said the national debt will start to decline when the growth rate of the economy outpaces the growth rate on the debt. So then one could conclude that we just need more robust economic growth to get out of this debt doom loop we seem to be headed for. I read an article recently in Barron's on this topic that says America needs an AI boom to grow out of our debt problem. There is no guarantee. That's the title of the article. And in the article, Joe Davis, he's Vanguard's global chief economist and a global head of the investment strategy group. Joe talks about various scenarios ahead, one of which, so Vanguard uses this like super sophisticated framework. They look at different probabilities and scenarios ahead. It's all voodoo guesswork anyways, but it is based in these big sort of macro trends that are influencing the economy, the markets, and obviously the US national debt is the big elephant in the room. The 800-pound gorilla in the room, whatever you want to call it. Okay. One of these scenarios, though, that he talks about in this article, Vanguard estimates it is, quote, close to a 50% chance that technology, especially artificial intelligence, could unlock productivity at scale, enabling greater growth and tax revenue, offsetting some of the headwinds of the US debt. So I talked about this yesterday because there's two ways out of this problem, basically, for the US debt. One way, it's a way out, but it leads to financial ruin, chaos, and collapse, which is just keep increasing the debt, whistling past the graveyard. Okay, option two is increasing tax revenue. So if you have a growing economy, even if you don't raise taxes, you're going to have increasing tax revenue because people are making more money, businesses are making more money, and that leads to filling up those coffers. So if we have bigger growth, then you have greater tax revenue, and that will offset the debt. Now, of course, you have to have discipline with what the government does with that tax revenue, which is a whole other thing altogether. Okay, so that's why that would work. Joe Davis goes on to say in the article and lay out a case for why growth could actually get us out of this debt problem we have. He says, quote, our framework suggests that the 2030s, keep in mind, it's 2025. So he's saying in the next 5, 10, 15 years, in the next decade, the 2030s will be shaped by a tug of war between technology as a source of growth and age-related spending deficits as a source of weakness. He talks about two likely scenarios. Okay, so I'm just going to talk about scenario one today because I'm spending the whole rest of this week talking about the doom scenario number two, but which is higher deficits is a drag on the economy. That's the other scenario in a nutshell. Okay, so the one scenario is productivity surges. Again, they peg this at about a 50-50 chance of this happening. He says AI continues to advance at an increasingly faster pace and becomes a general purpose technology like electricity. In other words, it's so ubiquitous, like everybody's using it. It's not just the big tech companies, but businesses of all kinds start to benefit from this. Households begin to benefit from this. I don't know, maybe one day I can get my AI robot to go pick up my kids from school and feed them a snack. That would be lovely. They prefer me to the robot, I'm sure, but maybe not. We'll see. Okay, by the first half of the 2030s, he says AI has raised productivity more than the personal computer and the internet. It eventually sparks transformative knock-on effects, new industries, significant job displacement. Oh, that doesn't sound good. Okay, technology keeps inflation in check and deficits cease to climb given higher tax revenue from stronger growth. A surge in innovation occurs thanks to more work automation and task augmentation. Costs of living are somewhat more manageable. Standards of living for the average American household double every 30 years, not every 70 years. He goes on to say, if AI becomes a true general purpose technology, the US could experience a rare best of both worlds scenario where positive economic trends open a window for policymakers to enact preemptive and even gradually phased in fiscal reform. But critically, even if AI's promise is realized, it only buys time. Without meaningful fiscal reform, economic growth will eventually decline. Okay, so the future is still quite unknown, but I think this study and this research done by Vanguard and the assessment of the probability of this occurring, they paint, I think, what could be a pretty realistic picture is that you could have a situation where economic growth, because we're at the leading edge of sort of a new industrial revolution when it comes to AI, because what we're seeing now and what we've seen over the past few years in the development and the rapid pace in which AI has been changing things is only going to continue. And so the author makes it clear, though, that sometime in the next 10 years, we're going to start to see this play out, not just in terms of how AI is changing the economic landscape, but how that is going to trickle down into everything and result in either stagnation because AI disappoints and it's not this amazing new technology that changes everything that we thought it was. That's certainly a possibility too. But if AI results in stronger economic growth, greater productivity, like electricity was, you're going to see stronger economic growth and tax revenue. And the US government has an easier way out if they can remain disciplined. But as he says at the end there, without meaningful fiscal reform, economic growth will eventually decline. So it's only a matter of time. So the government has to become disciplined in prioritizing the debt reduction. Otherwise, it just buys time. You know what's not going to hit the fan in 10 years? Maybe it'll be 20 years or 30 years. Whatever that is, it's just going to buy time. But regardless, I think we're going to see this play out and it's still going to be potentially years off. Like, I don't think a debt crisis is coming in the next 1 to 5 years, but it certainly becomes more of a possibility if things don't change and if we remain on the path that we're on. And so that's why tomorrow I'm going to talk about ways that you can prepare today for what I call and what's known as a debt doom loop. I didn't come up with that, but it is a doom loop because it's happened before, not in the US, but it's happened in other countries before where they have way too much debt, not enough growth, not enough income to keep up with that, not enough tax revenue, and then they have to cut the fat, and that's painful for everybody. It happened quite a bit in Europe, especially in Greece. And we'll talk more about what that could look like in the US tomorrow and how you could prepare for that. All right, that's it for today. My name's Ashley Michike, and this is the Retirement Quick Tips Podcast.